Alright, welcome to the new and improved Idle Threat Wrestling Podcast here on YouTube. You can see the set has gotten better. It's a set now. We keep the look. We'll give you a little tour real quick, I suppose. We got Froggy here on the TV. We got, wrestling posters, wrestling crap up on the wall there, If you like a bunch of crazy crap on the wall, then this show is for you, that's for sure. Yeah, so it's good. We're just just getting back into it. Came off the Rebellion road trip. I went up there. You can watch that episode. That was the last episode of the wrestling. It's me on the road with two wrestlers, and going up to the Rebellion show. And then there's a bunch of highlights from that. So if you want to see what happened, kind of there, take a look at that video, episode 3. It's kind of getting into the new set here now, and keep it like usual and start out with today in wrestling history. And it was a pretty dark day in wrestling history, I suppose, May 9th, as 12 years ago Hulk Hogan's son Nick went to jail, or was sentenced that day for the accident he had, which left his passenger brain dead. And then 5 years ago, even more dark and disturbing, 5 years ago, Buck's son Huffy went to jail for 25 years for a whole bunch of sexual related charges, pretty disturbing ones there, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. So we're back here after a couple weeks off of the road trip we did, and we did the interview with Phil Atlas, which I just did as an exclusive with no podcast. But we're getting back into the format of doing the interview segment along with what we got here, the podcast itself, and just gonna go over a couple things, I guess, that I've been watching, stuff that I've been watching. Still no WWE, so don't expect to hear from that federation on this show, but I watched the Impact tapings last week, the ones I was at that in Toronto, which I got a whole bunch of great pictures from that you can check out on Instagram at Idle Threat Productions. A whole whack load of photos on there, really good ones. So the Impact tapings this week, we saw the return of Rob Van Dam with a promo that I thought was just like, when I was there, Ethan Page came out to interrupt Rob Van Dam's little segment, and literally the guy got over sitting in a chair. I was really, really impressed by that. I'm trying to take pictures and everything, and I'm just watching Ethan Page, and Rob Van Dam did a good job too. His promo was great, but them talking when Ethan Page came out, that guy was really entertaining to watch, really got over by sitting in a chair and then telling Rob Van Dam, I'm going to show you how to use chairs that you've never thought of before, which I thought was amazing and brilliant, because we all know the artiste that Rob Van Dam is with the chairs. So I thought that was great. And then on that taping, what else did we have? We had the three-way triple threat match with Johnny Impact, Michael Elgin, and Pentagon for the #1 contenders. That was a good match. So Pentagon did take an injury at the end, and we hope he's doing all right. Then we had Austin Ace continue his undefeated streak, I believe we saw. Yeah, that was a great show. Impact storytelling is just great, better than anybody else's right now. You get the character development. I'm really enjoying. The other match was Phoenix versus Eddie Edwards. You had Killer Cross come out at the end, which I thought was great too, and held the kendo stick out for Eddie Edwards to use, and then pulled it back not to let him use it, and Phoenix super kicked him and got the win there. It was great match there. I like Killer Cross's character line. I think Killer Cross has a lot of potential with that character, devil's advocate type deal thing he's got going on. I really, really, really enjoyed that. I'm really enjoying Impact right now. I think Impact is where it's at in wrestling right now for storyline and character development. And I'm going to keep watching. It's got me drawn in. I'm not just being biased because I was there, and I worked on the ring crew, and Scott Demore and the guys from Can-Am Wrestling School and Border City Wrestling have done a lot for me, but I'm not being biased. I really think that Impact's got going on right now. Other stuff I've been watching, I hope you've all been watching. If you haven't, get on it now. I cannot stress it enough. You gotta watch these Viceland documentaries. Macho Man 1, Bruiser Brody, Montreal Screwjob, and then the last one they just did, which I think is my favorite I've seen so far. Mind you, I'm a sucker for world-class championship wrestling and the Von Erichs, but the Von Erich one was like, you know, I can't get that story. It's so, you can't believe it, like, and you can't turn away that, you know, they lost 5 out of 6 brothers. Like, it's just nuts, that one. So, I mean, even if you're not a wrestling fan, I mean, why would you be watching this podcast if you're not? But I'm just saying, that story of world-class championship wrestling and the Von Erichs is one of the most just fascinating. I have morbid curiosity, but I don't think it's just so fascinating how those guys, all 5 of them, just Kevin's left, 5 out of 6 of them. He said to Jim Cornette, like, I used to have 5 brothers, now I'm not even a brother. Think about that. How, it's just a crazy story and a lot of tragedy, because I think one of the next ones that Viceland's doing is Gino Hernandez. He comes out of world-class championship wrestling. And then the Bruiser Brody, like Bruiser Brody was world-class championship wrestling. I mean, Bruiser Brody was everywhere, but he was pretty synonymous with Japan and world-class championship wrestling as far as that goes. So the Viceland documentaries, I mean, I'm a wrestling journalist, or I'm trying to be, or, you know, whatever. That is the purest, the best wrestling journalism I've ever seen in these Viceland documentaries. Because there's a lot of documentaries, and WWE, they make great documentaries. But obviously, it's super one-sided. It's WWE's version of the story every time. These ones, I think they were the most truest. They get the right people. They talk to, you know, Dutchman Tal in the Bruiser Brody one. He was there. And Tony Atlas and in the Screwjob one, Jim Cornette. You know, they got Brett. Sean obviously didn't do it because of his WWE ties. They get the right people in these, and they're just so well made. I really, that's probably the best, maybe the best thing going on in wrestling right now is these Dark Side of the Ring documentaries. So they're available on Viceland, and I say check them out if you haven't checked them out. So that's really it for me this week with wrestling news and what. Oh no, you know what? Like I said, I was at Rebellion. That show was awesome. I can't like. The Full Metal Mayhem match with the Lucha Bros versus LAX, some of the craziest shit I've ever seen live, honestly. It was nuts. Sami Callihan versus Rich Swann. That had some pretty nutty stuff too. I love Rich Swann. His character, I really like watching Rich Swann's character. Awesome guy. Tim Callahan too, great wrestler. I like watching him. His stuff's entertaining. And then the big news was Gail Kim coming back to her home city, Toronto. A lot of emotion in that match against Tessa Blanchard. And I finally got to see Tessa Blanchard wrestle live, so you know I can't complain about that one either, even being such a huge Tessa mark. It was a great match. Tully Blanchard was there. I got my favorite horseman. Like that match really had everything. It delivered on what it said it was gonna, passing the torch to Tessa from Gale. You know, it was great. The North teamed up with Moose against the Rascals, which was an all-around just fun match. You can't. That match was just awesome. And see Josh Alexander and Ethan Page come out and get the big reaction in their home city, Toronto, or their base, where they wrestle a lot. It was a great show. Just beginning to end, enjoyed that show too. Impact Wrestling. Watch Impact if you're not. Get on Twitch on Fridays, 10 o'clock. I watch it every week. Don't miss Impact. WWE, come on. You just keep seeing the wrestling. There's like, it's just the ratings. They're down every week. They're not doing anything. Impact. Up. Don Callis and Scott Demore, thank you. You're doing a great job on everybody involved on that show. Like, love what's happening on Impact. Alright, so yeah, that's about it for me with wrestling. So we're going to go to the interview, which I haven't mentioned yet, is Border City Wrestling legend, I can't describe him another way, and the Impact announcer on the Canadian shows. We have Mr. Jeffrey Scott right here in the studio for an interview, so let's roll to that. Okay, welcome to another threatening interview on the Idol Podcast. I'm here today with TNA, Impact Wrestling announcer, and Border City Wrestling, long stay, been in Border City forever. A man who once told me I look like the bastard child of Aiden Prince and Axl Rose, Mr. Jeffrey Scott.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here.
So we'll just start with basically we all got back from Toronto about almost 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago now. The big rebellion. That was your first time on pay-per-view, right?
Actually, I did Bound for Glory in 2017 in Ottawa, and I did July Slammiversary in Toronto as well. So this is my third pay-per-view. Yeah, announcing, yeah.
So how is it being on, like, what's pay-per-views? Obviously a lot of people's ultimate goal to get there in the wrestling business, and now you've been there for the last 2 years, as you just said. What's that like?
Well, it's a lot more pressure, I can tell you that much. From doing independent shows to doing pay-per-view is night and day. There's a lot more riding on the line. There's no fixing stuff after the fact. You got to just be ready, and you got to be on top of your game if you're going to do it right. Like, I flubbed a couple things at the show, and you're learning every time you're doing it. Nobody's perfect, and as long as you're learning from your mistakes, just going to get better. That's all I try to do.
So there's a lot of difference there, but you like working like obviously bigger shows, better.
Yeah, I like traveling outside of town to do shows once in a while. It's nice to get out of Windsor. I love Windsor, but we do shows so much in Windsor that, you know, you get used to doing this stuff. I'm not necessarily tired of it. It's more like when we do shows in Windsor, I can't spend time with anybody after the fact or before the fact. But when we do stuff out of town, it's a lot easier for me to hang out with people, get to go out, go do some. To me, I like going to different restaurants and stuff like that. So to me, it's like, it's different. Yeah.
So let's just backtrack a little bit and talk about maybe when you started out with Border City. You've been with them for how long now?
Since day 2 of the company existing. So yeah. So my dad, Border City Wrestling ran a show in, I believe it was March or April of 1993. And my dad came downstairs, he had the Windsor Star in his hand, and he said, "Did you know there was wrestling in LaSalle on the weekend?" And my heart broke into 1,000 pieces because back then I watched anything wrestling. If a wrestler was on The Tonight Show, I'd watch it. If a wrestler made a cameo appearance on, you know, Super Kicks and all these stupid sitcoms, I would go. So I saw the article. It was just a photo in the corner, I think, of Bobby Clancy choking out, I think it was not Professor Maxwell, but his partner, whose name, Iron Mike Anthony. And I saw Chuck Fader's name, you know, in the byline, or not the byline, but in the description. So to show you how old I am and how old this is, I grabbed the phone book and I looked up Chuck Fader in the white pages, and there was only one. So I called and I said, "Is this Chuck Fader?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Is this the Chuck Fader that does Border City Wrestling?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "How do I get involved?" He says, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to do everything." He said, "Well, do you want to be a wrestler?" I said, "Yep." I said, "I want to sell tickets. I want to put up the ring. I want to put up chairs. I just want to be involved." So he told me that they were going to be starting the Can-Am Wrestling School in May. That was May 13th. Yeah, May 13th, 1993, which is 26 years almost to the day. Yeah. And I walked into the Can-Am Wrestling School for the first time. It was me, Mike Legacy, Mike Legacy's cousin, Kenny Oram, the sumo wrestler, and I think it was just the 4 of us. And we were technically the first 4 students at Can-Am Wrestling School. And from there, I never finished up with the training of wrestling. It was too much money, but I still wanted to be involved. So I hung flyers, I wrote articles for the program, you name it. Other than wrestle, I did it. And yeah, do a little sweat equity, and that's how I got so involved in BCW.
That's awesome. So maybe talk about like favorite memory of Border City, or any kind of memory. Like, what are some things that really stood out to you?
Yeah, there's a couple.
There's so much that Border City's accomplished in the city. Like,
well, I think the day that we realized that we had something, you know, and obviously it helps when, you know, you got The Rock on your show, but I think the show we did with The Rock and D'Lo and Mark Henry in LaSalle, you know, we were drawing a couple hundred people before that, and then we drew almost 1,000 people to The Rock and Mark Henry and D'Lo. So I think, oh man, we're really onto something here, and now this is like another probably 700-800 people that came to our show that have never been to a show before. And that was eye-opening for people, and it was from there on in that we started getting a lot more fans to our shows, and it allowed us to bring in more names and run bigger venues. It's all a matter of just getting word out there. It's hard in Windsor to get your name out there. We have one newspaper, we have like one TV station, and if you think about it, at the time, most of the people in Windsor watched American TV shows, and you know, who really read the Windsor Star newspaper? Not too many people, at least not my age demographic. So it was hard getting the information out there, but I don't know, what do they call that? Grassroots marketing, where we just went out and every time there was an event, every time there was anything going on, we were there with flyers, posters, just trying to get our name out there.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw that there was wrestling in Windsor, I was so excited.
Well, yeah.
Like it was the Rock on the River when they used to do those shows.
Yeah,
I think
the
it was
Blues
one
Fest, yeah.
With Jim the Anvil, I was like, I couldn't believe it, because wrestling was everywhere at that time. It was like 98, whatever.
Right.
And I was like, we have wrestling? I didn't care what it was. I was so hot, just like you. I was
Yeah,
like,
that
there's
show-
wrestling in our town. It's awesome.
Yeah, that show drew like almost 3,000-4,000 people down to the river, the one with Jim the Anvil on it. That was crazy.
That was the one with Severn, I think, was on it.
And it was about 110 degrees down
Yeah,
the river.
I remember
on the pavement.
I remember Jim coming back on a golf cart, basically, to get out of the ring by us, and everybody was slapping him on the back, and I was like, I'm gonna wait until he's not so sweaty and meet him, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, yeah, and then from there it moved on, shortly after the Chicharo Club days, I believe, was where it went next. Where
We
I
went from
saw a lot of these
LaSalle.
autographs up
Yeah,
there
we went from
those
LaSalle
days.
to the Hellenic Banquet Hall. We ran shows there for a couple of years. That's where we had Edge, Christian, Al Snow, Rhino made their debut in Border City.
Sexton Hardcastle.
Sexton Hardcastle, Christian Cage, whatever Rhino was called back then. Terry.
I think it's just Terry.
Terry. Oh man, you're really making me rack my brain. Terry Richards.
Terry Richards, that's right.
Terry Richards, yeah. So they all made their debut in Border City then. Then we moved to Chicharo Club, and we started getting a little bit more notoriety again. We started bringing in people like Sonny and Skip from WWE, and
Kenny was right there.
And then we had, then ECW went out of business, and basically anyone that didn't go to WWE from there came to Border City. So we had Tommy Dreamer, Mikey Whipwreck, Nova, Simon Diamond, Cyrus, Johnny Swinger. I'm sure I'm missing a dozen names, but that's the crew that kind of carried us through the 2000s to 2003 era. And yeah, those were some of our best shows too. We had the Tommy Dreamer surprise, Lance Storm surprise, Mikey Whipwreck retirement show where he won the belt and retired with the belt. I have a lot of good fond memories about the Chicharo Club days for sure.
Yeah, those were, just because I was so into ECW, those shows were the ones that really, really stand out that I remember. And then after that, it was Scott Demore started working with TNA, right? So the TNA guys kind of, let's maybe talk about what the difference was like now, because it's Impact.
Right.
Working with Impact again. And then like back then working with TNA, is it similar to like those days, or it's even bigger now though? Because I look at Border City, like when I was at the shows in Toronto, kind of like, wow, BCW has almost evolved into this, because you see Aiden Prince out there.
I mean, if you look at
everything.
TNA from 2003,
it was the same thing.
It was Bobby Roode, Eric
A1.
Young, A1, Johnny Devine,
Yeah, that's true too.
Chris Sabin, Alex Shelley. It was all the guys from this area at the time that were, you know, cutting their teeth, and Scott, you know, was running Border City and TNA at the same time, so it was a good opportunity for the local guys to get some exposure. Danger Boy, Derek Wild, the list goes on and on of people from, you know, 2003 till 2006, Bound for Glory.
The first Bound for Glory, I was going to say the opening match was the Kevin Nash Invitational, and it was loaded with
half a dozen Border City guys.
I just watched that not that long ago. I was there at that show, and it was awesome to see so many of the Windsor crew on a major pay-per-view.
And that was a big show too. We drew, you know, almost 4,000 people at the time for TNA, which
that was the first one out of town too for pay-per-view. They did a house show at the CompuWare Center, I believe, and then there was that.
They did a house show that was promoted with ICP like 3 months before that. And then Scott and I promoted the pay-per-view Bound for Glory in Detroit 2006.
That was still one of my favorite pay-per-views I think I ever attended too. Like, it was an awesome show.
It was, honestly, it was so amazing. And like, I had just bought a new car 2 days before the show, I'll say. Maybe a day, maybe that day even, I don't remember. I took possession of it. We went to the show, and there was going to be the scene outside where Christian and Rhino were going to be having their street fight. It was going to start outside. So they said they needed 9 or 10 cars to park outside in a half circle with their lights shining forward, so they'd have a a lit place to start their fight outside. And I said, well, are the vehicles going to be touched at all, or is it just there strictly for visual appeal? And they said, oh, just for visual appeal. And I said, okay, no problem. So I got the cars all set up exactly the way they wanted it, and I went and I told Rhino and Christian, I said, I got the cars all set up the way you want it. Just do me a huge favor. My car's the orange car. Don't fight anywhere near my car. I just bought the thing like yesterday or today. And they said, yeah, no problem. So go back and watch the pay-per-view and watch.
Is it the first car they...
The only car they wrestle on is my car. So look, don't smarten anybody up. That's the lesson of the day. Just don't say nothing. I would have just left my car alone.
So what's the future for Jeff Scott and Impact Wrestling and Border City, everything?
Yeah,
what we got coming up?
Yeah, Border City, for Border City we have 2 shows coming up. June 15th, back at St. Clair College, the new gym, the one where we did Brett and the one we did
the Sportsplex.
Sportsplex, yes. We're doing a charity event for Fantastic Fathers, raising money for that wonderful charity. That's one of our 2 main charities that we deal with, and that's a fundraiser for them. It's free to get into. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on that day. There's going to be bouncy castles and games, clowns, you name it, stuff for the whole family, not just the wrestling, and the wrestling will be the main event basically of the event, and that happens June 15th at St. Clair College. And then July 7th, we go back to Essex for the first time in, I don't know, 15, 20 years. We're going to be doing the Essex Fun Fest this year. They've been doing their shows with a different company in the past, and we're going to be doing the show there this year. So that covers off for Border City. As far as Impact goes, they're back in Windsor July 19th and 20th, doing TV tapings similar to what we did here in March. And if that goes well, they're talking about coming back again in October to do more TV. So as long as we keep filling the place, I think Impact is very happy with the way that things go in Windsor. This is like our, I don't know, 5th or 6th event here, and the Windsor fans always show up for it. They're loud. Like, you look online and people are always like, oh, Impact should run more shows in Windsor. The fans in Windsor are amazing. And it helps too that, we have such a rabid fan base here, and it's like different when they go other places.
We've talked about that before on the show with Phil, and I think I'll reverse with that. The fans of Windsor are very passionate, and they get behind the character.
And they get behind the Windsor people too, right?
Like I said, without Reversal, he disappeared for 10 years. As soon as he entered, people were still like, let's go Reversal. They remembered Reversal all these years. Not to keep plugging out Reversal.
No, that's okay. Yeah, but I mean, like, if you think about guys like Phil Atlas, A1, Aiden Prince, El Reversal, those are all guys who, started the Can-Am Wrestling School, slowly worked their way up, got in favor with the fans, and they're still running the momentum today. And like I said, it got them exposure to Impact Wrestling, not just because of Scott, but because of the talent they have. Yes. It's one thing to get opportunities. It's one thing to use that opportunity and to be good. Like anyone. Like, really, in all honesty, anyone could get on these shows, and it's a matter of who could, handle it. It's a whole different animal. I bet you there's guys like now, like even Josh Alexander, who's been wrestling for how many years in the independent scene and goes to Impact, and I'm telling you, I bet you if you asked him the same question, he'll tell you that, televised Impact Wrestling is way different than what, we got going on the independent scene, so.
Anything else you want to promote or plug right now when you got the opportunity?
BorderCityWrestling.com or Facebook.com/BorderCityWrestling. We'll have all our upcoming events on there. Please support the free shows. I know, you know, we don't bring in any big names and stuff, but the wrestling is still as top notch as it
I'll be there.
will be.
Very quality. Always with Border
And we
City.
always have our best wrestlers there, local. Otherwise, guys from Toronto, guys from the States are all going to be there. Like I said, we also have the big TV taping. So June and July is big. If you're a wrestling fan and you're around, there's 4 shows for you to go to, and if you went to all 4 of them, literally, what's it going to cost you? $30 to go to all 4 shows? Name where else are you going to go? Essex is free, Windsor's free, and then the 2 TV tapings are
You can get
$20 each or 2 for $30.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a great deal. Great wrestling.
And other than that, if you're into junk food and fast food and you're in the Windsor, Detroit area, I also have Junk Food Jeff on Facebook if you want to give that a try. And if you're into collecting toys and Funko Pop figurines, I also have a page called Windsor Funko Pop Friends. We have an event coming up July the 14th. That's going to be at the Legion in Tecumseh, where we've ran wrestling shows before. So if you're a fan of toys, collectibles, bobbleheads, cards, comics, July 14th at the Legion. Other than that, check out BorderCityWrestling.com. Keep supporting us. Tell your friends, and even if you don't like wrestling, there's something there for everybody. There's comedy, there's action, there's drama, there's Johnny Bravo, there's whatever you want out of wrestling, we have it.
It's definitely, it's always given, Windsor's not always, people complain that there's not always a lot to do in Windsor. And
Right.
Border City has given entertainment to Windsor for, what, 26 years now?
Right, and
26
like,
years?
like you said earlier, 2 general admission tickets to come watch some of the best wrestlers in the world. I'm talking like
Sure.
Rob Van Dam, Tessa Blanchard, Brian Cage, LAX, like
The Lucha Bros.
the best of the best, you know, coming to Windsor. And like you said, it's $20 for 1 ticket, $30 for 2 nights. So,
Can't beat it.
and it's like 3 hours of straight wrestling. No talking, no nonsense. It's just straight wrestling. So if you like wrestling and you like to be entertained, or if your kid's always bugging you to go, you know, over to the States to go to a show at Joe Louis Arena or whatever, Little Caesars Arena, you know, a night out there is going to cost you maybe $100.
For sure.
Border City, man, come on out. $30. 2 nights of action. $20 for 1 night of
Yeah,
action.
all 4 of those shows. I can't wait.
Perfect. We'll put you to work.
Yeah, I will be. So this has been another episode of the threatening interviews on the podcast. Jeff Scott, thanks for coming.
Thank you,
Joe
guys.
Idaho. We'll see you next time. So thanks again, Jeff, for coming to the studio here and doing the interview. We really appreciate it. Awesome hearing stories of the past from Border City, and as well as what's in the future for Border City, as well as the Impact stuff. So we're going to turn it over to our last segment that we've been using to close the show. Tell me he didn't just say that.
Tell me he didn't just say that.
So yeah, I don't know what the fuck he just said, to be honest. The Scott Steiner math equation's always, I've seen it a lot recently, so I thought, hey, if anybody else hasn't seen it, see it here first on the Idol Threat Wrestling podcast. And that's going to wrap it up for us this week, though. I'm glad to be back in the regular format. Expect another one next week. I believe we're going to be interviewing Nate Matson. So that'll be a really good one, too. I can't wait to talk to Nate. We will see you next time. Stay snapped.